trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Whole hard in the trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Don't forget I got memories, dead stain the whole room if I let him bleed. Shit was dark, I let this little light him out.
Hold on. I need you to relax. First off, I never heard this song before, Street Sweeper. This song 2 years old. Dre, you mess with Gunna, bro?
A little bit. Somewhat.
A little bit.
I don't be checking for him like that though.
Nah, I feel it. What up, O? So I'm on here. I'm here on time. Really wanted to speak since we want to talk about one guy. Thank God Steven Sims got cut. Okay. Then cut for weak Humphries. Okay. Hey Dre, before we get started, actually, I'm sorry. Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Die podcast. This is the Washington football side of things. Got my boy Dre with me. I need to put this. I hate how Skype does this thing, but I'm gonna put my camera back up, make me a little bit larger. But first and foremost, some administrative things. Since we got a few people in here, Schleezo, if y'all are looking for that copy of the Madden, the next gen Madden on the Xbox Series X, again, there is a giveaway Saturday for the pregame show. Right before we head into the matchup against the Baltimore Ravens, y'all are already locked in the sense that y'all are following. The giveaway is obviously if you're following and you're a regular, it increases your chances of winning and things like that. So y'all are locked. And for those who are watching on YouTube, those who are listening to the podcast, if you all are listening and want that copy, we have one copy that we're giving away. You want that copy, make sure you are following my Twitch channel. Make sure you are, if you want to increase your odds, you can subscribe to the Twitch channel. The Twitch channel subscription increases your odds by 3 times. Being a regular increases your odds by 2 times. And then a casual, if you're just following, good luck. You know what I'm saying? But you still have a chance. But yes, you just go ahead and follow the Twitch channel. For YouTube, the link will be directly in the description. Y'all are all set. So with that being said, the administrative things are out the way. Dre, how you feeling, boss?
I'm feeling better now that, like I said, I'm out of work. Shit, I feel even better if I had some liquor by my side. But I said, I'm gonna wait till the weekend to get the festivities started.
Yeah, I was about to say, bro, you got to think about. Well, we talked about it. They don't know, but you over here about to work out, man. You know what I'm saying? So you doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing for a third day.
I have enough fun other days that, for the most part, I try to get in my workout when I can. I said, shit, I got my days where I cheat and I got my days where I do my fucking thing. You know what I'm saying? So.
Absolutely. So Dre, I know we had our moments. I think it was last week where we talked about my work situation, man. Did you want to get some things off your chest, or we want to transition to out of office activities and talk about some Washington football?
We gonna transition to the out of office activities because I can't bring my work at home. What my man Rick say on 5 Heartbeats, my office hours is.
All right, okay, I respect that. Okay, all right. So, Dre, as we prepare for this Baltimore game, first and foremost, we do have. Now I am going to butcher his last name. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not perfect, but I'm gonna give it a shot right quick. I'm gonna give it a shot. His name is Kevin Oestreicher. I'm hoping that's right. Oestreicher. He's coming in from the Locked On Ravens podcast. He's going to chop it up with us as we prepare for the Week 3 season finale against the Baltimore Ravens. As you all know, they won 19 straight games, man. Which is 19 straight games in the preseason, which is weird. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's extremely fucking weird. But I mean, look, here we are. So we're gonna chop it up with him, talk some Ravens, and figure out what Baltimore's side of things is doing for Week 3. They have a few injuries, man, and I looked at this, Dre. They have a few injuries that's kind of actually jeopardizing Lamar Jackson in a sense. Like now, initially I thought that they was gonna hold him out, and I made a tweet about it. But like, they have literally 2 quarterbacks on their roster, Dre, and one of them, he played like a quarter in one of the preseason games this season or this preseason. So odds are Lamar Jackson he may get some time in that 3rd preseason game behind a banged up offensive line. And that's just on a general football perspective, that's not a good thing for Baltimore, and that's not a good thing for Lamar. But we'll see how it turns out. Did you hear anything about that? What I mentioned?
I briefly heard something about it earlier today, but I guess because it does kind of shock me that they are playing him. I mean, because you look around the league and like Joey Herbert, the guy we're playing, Justin Herbert, he won't even step on the field at all this preseason. And this is just his second year in the league, whereas Lamar Jackson, he's been NFL MVP, he's been on the league a couple of years now, and they might be playing him in the last preseason game. And I think Ron Rivera already said that we're not playing our starters much, so it's not like it's a dress rehearsal game or anything.
Yeah. And Sleezo, they are definitely preseason champs, bro. That shit is crazy, bro. I didn't pay attention to the stat until they brought it up like a week or two ago. And then Washington football, and I'm not blaming them. I'm not even mad, but Washington football fans talking about we're gonna break that streak. I'm like, nigga, it is a preseason. I don't care if they beat us 20-0. They can have that shit.
I don't care.
I don't care.
Yeah, I really don't care.
Yes. So I mean, they're good, and that kind of sheds light to actually the coaching mentality and aspect that actually Doc talked to us about. Like Baltimore, they take everything serious. So I mean, it pays off in the long run. They are the consistent winners. But at the end of the day, I can tell you if John Harbaugh and company was to lose, or Jim Harbaugh, whatever his name is, I get confused all the time. But if they were to lose in the preseason, he wouldn't care. He wouldn't care. All right. So listen, before we get into the 4 W's, as we know, I've started rolling this out last week. So for those who aren't familiar, 4 W's is just a series of four questions where we ask some thought-provoking, some simple, but mainly to generate some thinking and providing a response. So I asked a series of 4 questions, pregame and postgame. Today obviously is the pregame, where we prepare for the Baltimore Ravens. And before we get into this one in particular, do you have anything that caught your eye throughout this week? Because it is Thursday now. Do you have anything that caught your eye this week? Just in general, any observations or quotes or anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, I don't know if you were going to bring this up or not, but Landon Collins' book has been kind of generating a little bit of buzz with him, kind of alluding to the old way and the new way. Like he seems to be really loving what Ron has brought to the team and kind of, shitting on what Jay had brought to the team in terms of how serious it takes. But not only just Jay, he would just talk about his teammates in general, like, his teammates not wanting to practice or complaining that practices were too hard, which is, I hate hearing that, but I'm glad to know that things have changed now. Like I said, you get the sense that happens when you have a serious leader like Jonathan Allen in the locker room, where guys like that, he's not going to let you take a play off. He's going to hold you accountable as well as himself. So it comes with leadership in the locker room with players like that, but it also starts more so at the top, and that's where Ron Rivera and his crew.
So, Caesar, I did see your question. We could circle back to that. And I think that's a good enough question to actually ask Kevin too when he hops on about the players not starting until week 1. But I agree with you. And truth be told, Dre, I gotta give Kevin Sheehan, that Kevin, I gotta give him some credit. Obviously, because this isn't my original point, but he pointed things out when Landon said this, right? Landon was a part of the culture too, like a part of that negative sense in that when he got here, it was all about David Gettleman. If you think about it, that's all he talked about. He was all on get back mode, which is fine. Like, it's okay to be motivated, but you didn't really care about what was going on here. You was focused on what was really going on in New York and on get back mode. Like, you really only cared about 2 games a year, and it was the Giants game. So like, while you understood and noticed things were kind of different or off, you were still immersed in that negativity, and that lack of preparedness or lack of focus. So I 100% understand where he was coming from. And I don't expect him to even take accountability for something when he's just answering a question. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm not even getting on him. I'm just pointing out the fact that Sheehan did make a good point and talked about the fact that he was actually a part of the same thing. So it's good to see that he actually just recognized the fact that things are changing. And I guess that kind of points out to a lot of things that we're seeing with Ron Rivera and his established thing. Like, how often are we seeing anybody complain on the team? Like, if we see anybody complain, they're talking about Madden ratings. That's it. That's the only thing they're fucking complaining about.
That's true. Yep.
So I don't know, man. I think things are good in that aspect. You won't see much, and then like everything is tight-lipped over there. That's not. I'm not talking about even on the front office side. Just tight-lipped in terms of people playing times, people talking about being frustrated. The last people we heard being frustrated, I mean, well, shoot, technically it was Alex Smith who was frustrated. That was the last time we heard. But like people who were actually on the team expected to play, it was Quentin Dunbar and Trent Williams, and he got rid of both of them.
Yeah,
got rid of both theirs. So I mean, I did peep that quote from Landon, man, and it was pretty compelling just to hear it and see where he was at. Dakota, you are not. This is not your moment. All right, you need to relax.
You know, I also had another observation as well. I wanted to get your opinion on this because this was something listening to both Sheehan and Goldie's podcast, and both of them get the sense. They played the clip of Jack Del Rio speaking. Well, he's been asked a question kind of specific to the scheme, and Jack Del Rio, he pretty much says, and you know, because he hates talking, so he goes, well, I'm not much interested in talking about scheme. He said, I'll let coach talk to you about whatever, you know, he likes. So Sheehan and Goldie both kind of took that as he's throwing jabs at Ron. And because Ron does, you know, he gives more descriptive kind of answers and Jack doesn't. And then and according to Goldie, I don't remember much, but Goldie says this is the first time he's made like one of these jabs towards Rivera, and they feel like it's jabs at how Rivera talks, and basically it seems like he would just rather Rivera shut up when it comes to scheme stuff.
That is an interesting theory. Immediately when I hear things like that, I think of like an alternative perspective. Yes, they're noticing something that's quite possibly true, but in my eyes, I would also counter argue, like, Ron Rivera has been, while he's been tight-lipped in certain cases, he's also been very informative in how he presents information to the media and to the fans. And he does that on a weekly basis on certain topics, not every topic, but he does this thing on certain topics. And I'm not necessarily certain that when Jack Del Rio says something like that, he's upset or annoyed at Ron Rivera. I'm thinking in my head, it's quite possible that he's deferring because he's just more comfortable in the coordinator role that he's in. Like, what is the purpose of him actually just saying, okay, I'm gonna break everything down? That's not his job. His job is to coach, and his job is to coach a unit. It's not to coach the whole team. And so deferring to Ron Rivera in that instance that will be the counter argument that I would have for somebody like that in that specific instance, is that I'm not saying it's impossible for them to be right, but I am saying it sounds a little far-fetched right now because of the fact that Del Rio is probably much more comfortable in that coordinator spot where he's not obligated to give those answers like Ron Rivera is. How do you feel about it?
I definitely agree. That's a great way to look at it. Because I really hadn't thought too much about that side of the perspective. But I can also see an instance where Jack Del Rio, you know, does probably feel a little annoyed by some of the things that Ron Rivera does. Like, it wouldn't shock me at all because Jack is a pretty strong. He's bull. He's a stubborn dude. So, you know, Ron seems to be a little bit more. Right, exactly. Ron seems to be a little bit more liberal, and you know, not even in terms of like politics, but just liberal in general. Whereas Jack is conservative in, you know, that aspect as well, like not just the politics, but when it comes to like talking and giving away his things, he's going to lean more conservative. So I can see where, you know, the two would differ on that, but I don't think it's a disrespect thing. I don't think it's coming from like a level of disrespect or anything. I just think it's, you know, at most, it just comes off as Jack may feel, you know, slightly annoyed or perturbed sometimes by it.
Well, let me ask you this question then, because we're not going to say we could dig a little bit deeper into this. We're not going to sit here and act like these instances don't fester, right? Like if assuming that these things are, I would assuming they're more so annoyed and perturbed and things like that. How much longer can they be together? Now, I'm not saying that there's going to be a head and things like that, but eventually, sometimes it has to be addressed. It has to be flat out addressed. Yeah. And I want to know, like, what would be the result of them addressing the issue, them talking about it? Does it just get swept under the rug? Does it, all right, well, how do we move on from here? And they split their separate ways? Or is this like all right, I said what I had to say. I respect your side. Now you know where I'm coming from, but this is where I stand type thing, and we'll just continue to do us. Like, how do you think this moves on?
So here's the thing, like, and this was something I kind of thought about in the back of my mind when both of the hirings were first announced back last year. Jack Del Rio was a former head coach, so that's always a thing. Like, you know, he was a head coach a couple of times in the league, and now he comes back down to an assistant coach. So. And Jack he's brought in accomplished defenses literally every stop he's been in. So you kind of feel like Jack does have like more of an ego than the average coordinator out there, because a lot of them haven't been with Jack's been. And, you know, him and Ron are essentially peers. So it's not like he looks up to Ron or anything. They more so respect each other as co-workers, and they've, you know, been around each other for years. So you got to think that, you know, if there was to be some kind of divorce or resolution that comes to something like that, it'll be more of a mutual parting, whereas maybe Jack wants more. And it's possible, because if Jack keeps putting up the numbers that he does with this team, I would not be shocked if another team wanted to pull him as a head coach. So he may have bigger aspirations than just, you know, being with us for now. So you also got to look at it from that point of view.
I agree. And let's see, Jack is 58 years old. So if he wanted to, he can have that one last hoorah if he wanted to, and get that head coaching gig somewhere. And also, I'm not going to lie to you, it just popped up in my head. It wasn't something I was thinking about before. But if he produces a top 5 defense against the schedule that we have this year, he is going to be back on the market as a head coaching candidate, no matter what happens. Record wise, if they're a top 5 defense, he's right back up there. They're going to be asking him, what'd you learn after your previous experiences as head coach?
Right.
Because if things work out, and if your answer sounds good to me, I'm gonna hire your ass. Like, that is.
I mean, Tom Coughlin was still getting jobs at an old age. So I mean, if Jack Del Rio is still producing top 5 defenses, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he gets head coaching calls. But he wouldn't be the only one either. I mean, you got to look at the other guys on the staff, like the DB's coach. I wouldn't be shocked if he, you know, even though he may take a step up as a D coordinator first before he makes the jump to a head coach. But I mean, this is what, you know, Doc talked about the other day with. I mean, not going to deviate too much from our topic, but Doc talked about the other day with the Mike Shanahan thing about how, you know, the coach, look at the guys that's coaching in the league now from his staff. So if you start to see the numbers start to look like this for the Washington football defensive staff, you can start to see this staff start to produce those numbers of head coaches. But will anyone succeed, Ron Rivera or not? But again, with Jack Del Rio, like I said, if that was the divorce that was going to happen, I could see it going that way. Or maybe Jack just makes a lateral move and goes defensive coordinator somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's a good amount of speculation, I feel like, because we don't have to worry about that this year. I think that's good enough.
Right.
Before we get into these 4 W's, right. But before we get into these 4 W's, man, there is one more thing, because I almost slipped. If you're still in here, asked a question, or he didn't necessarily ask a question, but he did have comments on Steven Sims and Adam Humphries. So I'm gonna hand this to you. He mentioned, thank God Steven Sims got cut, but then secondly, he got cut for week Adam Humphries, but he's not mad to see Steven Sims go. I'm gonna ask you this just flat out: do you think it was ever Adam Humphries versus Steven Sims, or was it a little bit different than that?
No, I think it was Steven Sims versus well before Kelvin Harmon and Antonio Gandy Golden, Dax Milne, and DeAndre Carter. I think that was his competition. I think, to be honest, I think Humphries' spot was locked the moment they signed him because that was a Fitz guy. I think his spot was always locked.
I agree. And here's the thing that kind of bothers me with people. Not you, O, because you're my boy. It's not you. But the thing that kind of bothers me with people is not necessarily, because I agree with what you said, so I'm not even going to repeat the fact that like it was never Adam Humphries versus Steven Sims. But the thing with Adam Humphries is that Adam Humphries got here on his own merit. Like he was skilled enough. Like people still value him as a good enough slot receiver, and it was happenstance that he was also Ryan Fitzpatrick's teammate. Like that's just the facts of the matter, and it's okay. And obviously, that's the reason why we draw conclusions as to that's why he's here. Which is, I mean, that's obviously a good reason. But at the same time, I'm saying he's a good enough slot receiver on his own. Whereas, like if Ryan Fitzpatrick wasn't here, that would have still been a good acquisition, and he would have still had a good chance at making a roster. So I don't put it this way. I think this is probably the best way to put it now that I think about it. Everybody loves Trey Quinn. Everybody loved Trey Quinn because he was an undrafted, Mr. Irrelevant, damn near undrafted. He was Mr. Irrelevant, that one slot receiver that we thought we needed, and he underperformed eventually. Adam Humphries is the opposite of what he is. Adam Humphries is the opposite of what Trey Quinn is. He is a proven slot receiver who has that ability to make moves and just be productive as a slot receiver against the better ones and twos in the NFL. So if you ever thought Trey Quinn was that guy before he stepped on the field, guess what? Adam Humphries is that guy before he stepped on the field. Stepped on the field for Washington. Because we've seen him already and he's proven. I don't care what his injuries are. We know he gets hurt, but that's nothing to do with his skill set. So it was never a case of Steven Sims versus Adam Humphries to me. Adam Humphries was always locked in that top four. It was everybody else. And Steven Sims was in that everybody else. Who was Steven Sims going to back up? It wasn't is he going to overtake anybody's position? Who was he going to back up? And he couldn't even beat that part out. So that's the issue that he ran across too, in my opinion.
Well, something I've been thinking about. I was sitting here thinking about it. And I'm looking at that top four receivers right now, and as it stands, but Terry, Curtis Samuel, Diami, and Adam Humphries. Now, my question is who are the three that's going to be on the field the most? Because you got to think about it. You're not going to run 4 wide receiver sets the whole game. Most of the time, you're going to be in 3 wide receiver sets. But of course, there's going to be packages where guys are rotating. But I want to know, this is going to be between Humphries and Diami. So if Diami's on the field more than Humphries, you're looking at Curtis Samuel as your slot guy for most of the time, with Diami and Terry on the outside. And for me, that'd be a little bit more dynamic than the Humphrey combination. Even though, like I said, not discounting Humphrey, but just thinking of Diami, Curtis, and Terry on the field at the same time with Curtis playing slot, I think that'd be the most dangerous combo of receivers there.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I think it all comes down to situations. Like, for example, Adam Humphries will work best in the red zone, I think. He's shifty enough, he's quick, where he can move in those tight spaces and still and operate. Like, for example, I won't ever forget, it happened last week, so it's whatever. But he was in the red zone, and for a split second, the overthrow in the red zone for a touchdown for Adam Humphries, where Ryan Fitzpatrick had missed him by a yard or two. Like, the savviness that I don't even think people still, like, to this day, to this moment that we're talking, I don't even think people realize how savvy and subtle it was. But
yeah,
when Adam Humphries saw the ball, it was a defender on his hip, and at the very last second, he created 2 yards of separation off a subtle move and a quick little stab with his arm. He separated, and he got 1 or 2 yards of separation, and he was still overthrown. But the fact of the matter is, he separated at the perfect time. And that's something that people aren't even paying attention to or haven't paid attention to, because those are the things that he can do in the red zone that can produce points for this team. So for me, I think he can. He's probably better off in the red zone for us.
Yeah.
I think Diami, for obvious reasons, right, Dre? He's that big play guy. And he's best to operate in between the 20s. I don't know how they're going to work it. It's going to be interesting because obviously Humphries isn't just going to be in the red zone. Like, he can operate anything in like short yardage situations too. When you want to mix it up a little bit, you don't want to tell your tail. And since, like, obviously if he's in the game, you're going to pass it. You don't want to do that. But I think he works in situations, and that's kind of where I'm getting to, Dre. Is that how you feeling?
Agree. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like I said, you made a perfect point about Humphries being better in the red zone, whereas Diami's going to be the big play stretch the field guy, which, I would love to have him on the field more than Humphries, like you said, 20 to 20s, just because he's always going to be that threat, even when you're not making that play to him. Like, you have to account for Diami over there, so that takes pressure off someone else on offense. But I definitely agree with putting Humphries in the red zone because, like you said, he has that quick twitch, and he can separate down there, and Fitzpatrick's going to look for him there. I mean, like I said, if Fitzpatrick connects with him the way he should have, we're talking about 6, and more people are talking about what you just brought up about the special move that he did there.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we have a couple more topics, but Dre, I wish we could have gotten into the 4 Ws. It's cool. Things like this happen. It's good conversation anyway. So we have a couple more topics, Dre. I'm gonna take an ad break and we'll transition to the Zoom call. O has a couple things that he wants to talk about. That's really good. So we'll talk about those things until Kevin joins us, and we'll go ahead and transition to the Zoom call right now. The defense in particular has been all right. With that offense, boom. I should have took a 2-minute ad break. But the offense, man, it's been a question mark. And it's not a serious thing, right? So, I would ask you, like, what exactly has been bothering you? Because you heard me and you understood where I was coming from, but what exactly has been bothering you when you talk about the offense in particular? Is it the fact that they're not scoring touchdowns? Is it the execution part? Or is it a particular player that's kind of getting on you? Like, where are you at with that one? All right. Boom, there we go. I can get rid of this camera. Remove. Boom. Gallery. All right. Here we go. Mic check. You can hear me, Dre?
Yes, sir.
All right, bet. Okay, cool. So, we will talk about that. Kevin is already ready, so he's very on time. He was here at 7:29, Dre. So we go ahead and get that started. One second. But I will read you because you said execution for you honestly doesn't look like them boys are on the same page, fits in the ones. That's a fact. But don't forget, Doc mentioned Tuesday, like, and he brought up a good point. We got to see things through, especially with Curtis Samuel being out. If Curtis Samuel is out right now, we don't know like how effective they really could be because we can see the offense in a variety of ways. They could take the ball out of Fitz's hands on third down because they got that boy Curtis Samuel. You can hand in the ball, get him a short screen, something like that. Have him make some plays at open field, or Antonio Gibson like dinking dunks. Like it can be that simple. Always concerned about the execution, Dre, in terms of the offense. And I understand it because that's where I'm at. Like, there's some simple things inside the 20 that kind of bothers me, and I understood where he's coming from, and I'm actually on the same boat, to be honest with you. When it comes to execution, I don't think this is like a we'll get it right eventually thing. Like, you got to get that right as soon as possible because before that season starts, and they're not able to execute against that Los Angeles Chargers team, it's gonna be a wrap. It's gonna be a wrap, bro. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing all right, man. How about you?
Hey, I cannot complain, man. First and foremost, I do appreciate you. Excuse me. I do appreciate you checking in with the Trap or Dive podcast and live stream, man. Talk some Ravens football, bro. How's your day been going? Everything's all right?
Yeah, everything's been going good. The Ravens had some news. They traded away Sean Wade, so it's never an uneventful day with the Ravens, let me tell you.
Hey, so that's that's a rookie, right?
Yep,
Okay.
5th round pick.
Right, hold on 1 second. I got just left. You about to end him back in 5th round pick. All right, so what was the consensus about the Ravens? Now I understood because I was following for a second. I understood that this was like a crowded DB room, and the Ravens always had quality defensive backs. So I'll just leave it in the sense like how important or how good could he have been for Baltimore? Did the fans really cling to that guy?
Yeah, I think a lot of people were excited for sure. Sean Wade had a great 2019. He was considered like a first, second round pick by a lot of people. And then he came back to school in 2020 and ended up tanking his draft stock. The Ravens got him in the 5th round and people really liked him. But other guys stepped up. Chris Westry, he's a 6'4" corner, runs 4.31. Those are traits you can't teach. So he was someone who was probably going to make this roster. Ardarius Washington, a lot of people had him as a 3rd round pick out of TCU, a safety. He's also stepped up. They have a couple other guys. They're not going to be able to keep everybody who they want to keep.
Okay.
So they had to make some tough decisions. And the Ravens get back. It's a 2022 7th and a 2023 5th. So they end up getting the pick back that they took Wade with anyway, plus a 7th. So they get something back for someone who wasn't going to make their roster in a couple weeks, which is a win. But it's still a bit disappointing that they're not going to have the chance to develop.
All right. So basically what you're saying is we need to pay attention to the Patriots and see how it turns out. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. For those who don't know, Kevin, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I will attempt it out of respect for you. Kevin Oestreicher. Did I get that right? Oestreicher.
It's a tough one. Hey, I don't blame you. It's a tough one.
I wanted to give it a chance. Look, listen. So as simple as it is, my name is Jamal, but for some reason, the U fucks everybody up. I don't understand it. They say Jamual, they say Jamul. I don't get it. Like so I had to give it a shot and correct me if I was wrong. So I like it. All right. So we're in the same boat here. But yes, we have Kevin on with us. He's the host and producer of the Locked On Ravens podcast and the managing editor for the Ravens Wire. Question: how long have you been doing the Locked On Ravens and Ravens Wire task and stuff like that? How long have you been on those jobs?
Yeah, so I've been doing Ravens Wire for over 3 years now, and I've been doing Locked On Ravens for just over 2. So I've been speaking about the Ravens and writing about the Ravens for a really long time.
So let me ask you before we get into the game here. Now, when I think when Locked On Washington, I was talking to David 3 years ago, and I knew I couldn't do it because of school, and I knew it was gonna be hectic because he required us to do it every day. Like he asked us, we had to be there every day, even if it's as little as 20 minutes. We had to record, and I couldn't do it then. So I can only imagine how tasking it is. I will ask you, like, how are you adjusting to also being the managing editor for the Ravens Wire, who produces a lot of content, but then also having to make that content for the Locked On podcast and stuff like that? Is it hectic?
Yeah, it is hectic. Well, I'll tell you, I'm 23, so I started to do the Locked On stuff when I was still in college.
Okay.
And so I was managing school. I was also writing for Ravens Wire as a contributor. I just took over as the managing editor. I had a great managing editor before, Matthew Stevens, who really told me the ropes and taught me everything I know about this industry. So it is a lot. It is 5 days a week. I've never missed an episode. I'm committed to putting out content. And just like so many people are, I mean, it's definitely a grind depending on how often you do it. And for Locked On, the episodes, they're not an hour. They're not an hour and a half. It's about 20 to 30, maybe 45 minutes. So it's not like I'm producing an hour and a half show every single day. That'd be a lot. But even still, 30 minutes, finding something to talk about every day, especially during the off season, you kind of have to get creative with it because sometimes there's just not news in the middle of June, the middle of July. And now we're starting to get back into football season, so it gets a bit easier. But I mean, you're talking about doing recaps and previews and doing all that kind of stuff to kind of
everything in between.
There's always stuff to talk about, but you just kind of have to dig deep and find it.
Absolutely. The good thing is you are covering Baltimore, man. So while it is challenging in terms of the schedule and stuff like that, and trying to manage everything that you got going on, it's good work because the Ravens are winners. And with that being said, as we preview Saturday, man, I just have a quick question in general. The Ravens are on a 19-game winning streak, I believe, in the preseason.
They are.
Now I know preseason in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter, but I will ask you from a coach's perspective, how seriously does Baltimore take these preseason games? Like, is this more of a streak of luck, or are they actually? Is it a mixture of them actually focusing on winning in preseason, and it being a streak of luck?
Yeah, I think every team to an extent does want to win in the preseason, but of course it's not the regular season. So they're not putting in hours and hours and hours of game film on a preseason opponent because they're likely not playing them in the regular season. It's very rare that happens. And the Ravens, they're not going to overexert themselves to play their starters like any NFL team does. They're not going to play their starters for a full 60 minutes during a preseason game because that just risks injury. So I think it's more of a testament to the depth that they have there. They've been a very deep team for years. This is honestly in 2021, I think the deepest team they've had in a couple of years, as we just talked about with Sean Wade. You know, they can't keep a 5th round pick they just drafted on the team that they were really high on. So I think it's a testament to the coaches. It's a testament to the depth that they have. I don't think it's them, again, like preparing, putting thousands of hours into a matchup. But I think they still, you know, they go over stuff. They get the plays they want to run. And also, it's not like they're putting their entire playbook out there. The Ravens offense this preseason has been very vanilla. And a lot of teams, they're not going to throw out their entire playbook because by the time week 1 comes, all the other teams have been studying that film and they know what everything is. They know the trick plays. So they're not going to fake a punt up, 6 points in the 4th quarter because they don't need to do that in the preseason. So I think it is more of just a testament to what they've built and the culture that they have. But, winning 19 straight is no easy feat, and there has to be a bit of luck in there too. But it's about the Ravens, and I think their depth is the most important thing.
Now, on a personal opinion side, this is just your personal opinion. Do you think that they're gunning for that record? Because I think they're like 1 game away from breaking it. Do you think they're gunning for that record?
I think it's more important to them than people think, but also, I'm not going to play Lamar Jackson for 60 minutes to get it, but I think it's something that they kind of do want. I mean, I would personally want it if I was the Ravens and I was saying, hey, I have a shot at history here to break a Vince Lombardi record like that. That's something not a lot of teams, not a lot of people get to do. So, playing against a very talented Washington football team squad is the preseason games are never easy. No team's going to just lay over, especially in the final game when guys are fighting for roster spots. Like, this is the last time that these guys can go out there and prove to the coaches that they deserve a spot on the roster. So I think the intensity is going to be there. I think the game plan will be there, maybe a little bit more than the first 2 preseason games, but also I think it'll be more of the second, third stringers as opposed to the starters in this one.
Dre, this is why Doc, like what Kevin just said, this is why Doc is really looking forward to this Saturday game, and many of us, like you and myself, like the intensity part, understanding who Baltimore is, like that's kind of incredible to hear, but also like we kind of seen it coming. We just got to see how Washington responds, because you called us talented. I mean, we're talented, I agree. Yeah. But hey, we're not in that.
It's nice to hear from someone else.
Exactly. That winning pedigree thing, it's a difference. And y'all are up here and we are like we right here. We ain't really there yet. So with that being said, man, John Harbaugh, has he said what type of game he'd be treating this week as? Like, is this going to be the dry run of sorts in terms of game prep and stuff like that? Or is this something where, has he mentioned it at all? I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, he has mentioned it, and he pointed out, he loves Ron Rivera. He made it a point to say, they have a great football team over there. But he also said kind of what I've been saying in that, they're not going to treat this like a regular season game. And that's not any disrespect to any preseason team, whether it's Washington, whether it's anybody else. But I think most teams aren't going into this saying, all right, this is a game we have to win. This is a game that means the most in the world to us. They're not saying that. So Harbaugh has kind of reiterated the point that, yeah, we're going to go out there. We're going to give it our best. Our players are going to have a great, I think, 1 game, 2 time, but also they're not going to risk injury. Now, the Ravens, this is interesting. They ended up cutting Kenji Bahar, who was a quarterback for them. Trace McSorley, who I think is third on their depth chart. Yep, he's hurt with the back. So what they have is 2 healthy quarterbacks right now on their roster. So a lot of people have been beginning to wonder, will Lamar Jackson get reps in this game? Or will they put Tyler Huntley in there and go with him the whole way? In Carolina's game on Saturday when the Ravens played the Panthers, he ended up playing all but I think he got taken out at the 2-minute warning. So they could decide to just go with him again the entire game, but Will the Ravens want to do that for 2 straight games? It's possible because he hasn't really had a lot of NFL experience, especially with him being a rookie and there being no preseason last year. But, I mean, if Lamar Jackson, who hasn't played in the preseason yet, was out there for a series or two, it wouldn't shock me by any stretch of the imagination, but I also don't think it's necessarily likely. And plus, the Ravens have gone through, man, it seems like every single day the Ravens have had someone leave practice with an injury. None of them have been serious up till LJ Fort, who got hurt in the playoff game. Rashad Bateman is out probably until late September, early October, but I wouldn't expect the Ravens to rush those guys back for this final game here just to pick up a win in the preseason.
All right. You answered the Lamar question because that was a follow-up. You said possible, not necessarily it's going to happen, but possible 1 to 2 series for Lamar, given the quarterback situation. I will ask you about this rookie again, just to shed some light for him on the Washington football side of things. What is your opinion of, first of all, what is his name again? Secondly, that's the first thing. Secondly, what is your opinion on him after that first game that he did play? Does it seem like it's going to be a mess against Washington, or is this like somebody who you think he can hold his own, at least for this one game?
Are you talking about the quarterback?
Yeah, the rookie quarterback you mentioned. I just forgot his name.
No. So Huntley's actually second year. He's a second-year quarterback out of the university, or out of Utah. Tyler Huntley. He and Lamar Jackson played against each other in high school, actually. They're really good friends. And it's funny because the Ravens really like him. I think that when looking at him versus Trace McSorley, I think that Huntley runs the Ravens offense a bit better. And that's not a knock on Trace McSorley, but I think that overall Huntley has shown more flashes. He's shown a bit better arm strength. He's shown more. He is mobile. Okay. He gives you that. And I think regardless of how good a quarterback is, they have to fit your system. And an example of that is when Lamar Jackson took over for Joe Flacco in 2018. Lamar Jackson was running a Joe Flacco offense, which is nothing like what Lamar Jackson is. You know, Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson are 2 very different quarterbacks. So when talking about Huntley, I think he can definitely hold his own. He started off pretty slowly against Carolina. I think it was 0 for 4 he was before really picking it up, and ended up having an interception, but still, I think managed the game really, really well. So when looking at him, I think it's more going to be what can the offensive line do and what can the wide receivers do. The Ravens are down 5 of their top 7 receivers, or they were down 5 of their top 7 receivers. They got James Prochet back, who was dealing with some cramps. So Huntley is going to be dealing with, all right, who am I throwing the football to on Saturday? I think he can do well against Washington, but it's going to be, again, that question of, is he going to go the whole way, or is he going to maybe get a couple series off because Lamar Jackson is going to play?
So this is for the offense and defense right here when I ask this one. Which key starters can we expect to play? Now, we understand about the injuries and people missing at the receiver position. We understand that the O-line actually has some people that's kind of out of the lineup in terms of the starters. But who do you think that we can expect to see play on both sides of the ball? Like these key starters, the notable guys.
Yeah, so I'd expect more of the younger ones, so potentially Jackson, but running backs, maybe J.K. Dobbins will get a series, maybe Gus Edwards will get a series. Wide receiver-wise, I don't really expect any key guys to play. Marquise Brown probably isn't going to suit up. Neither is Sammy Watkins or obviously Bateman. Tight end-wise, Mark Andrews probably won't. On the offensive line, though, we'll probably see the battle for left guard be pretty prevalent. I wouldn't be shocked to see Bradley Bozeman, the new starting center, get some snaps. Ronnie Stanley, it'd be nice to see him get snaps, but he's coming off of that brutal ankle injury, so I don't anticipate him playing. On defense, it's more of, again, the younger guys, so maybe Patrick Queen and Malik Harrison get some snaps at linebacker for a couple series. On the defensive line, you're looking at players like Odafe Owe, Tyus Bowser. Maybe Deshaun Elliott and Chuck Clark also get some run there. I don't think in the cornerback room Marlon Humphrey will play. Probably not Marcus Peters either. Jimmy Smith's been out with an injury himself, so definitely not him. But it'll probably be a series or two, maybe a quarter at the max for these young starters. And then after that, we'll start to see the second stringers probably trickle in there. Speaking
of second stringers, there's this guy, man. Now I'm gonna ask you about him because I forgot his name, just like I forgot that goddamn quarterback. There's this guy at running back. Flash had a couple plays in the preseason to this point. That's not J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, Mark Ingram moved on, but I don't remember his name, but he had a touchdown, I think, in the last game that you all played, or the last home game. I don't know if it was the week 2 or week 1, but he looked really good too. And his run that he had for a touchdown, it's like 20 or 30 yards. what is his name? But also, can you kind of talk about his game for a second? Because he piqued my interest when I watched his highlight.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Tyson Williams. There it is. Yeah, he's someone who I have been very impressed with. I mean, going into training camp, the third running back job for me was something I was not keeping an eye on. I thought Justice Hill had it all secured. Nothing was going to be amiss about that. Tyson Williams comes in and just like dominates. He's great in pass protection. He's able to do stuff out of the backfield as a receiver. He has good power, good cutting speed, good agility. He can get to the edge very well. And I think that he now is the leader in that clubhouse for the number 3 back job. But that touchdown you mentioned, it was last week against Carolina. I mean, literally was like crawling upright, trying to get into the end zone. Like, incredible display of balance there. So with the Ravens, they're looking for that versatility. I think Williams gives that to them. And Hill, on the other hand, who was a 4th-round pick a couple years ago, had 5 carries for 8 yards in the first preseason game, and we haven't seen him since because he's been out with an injury. So that's kind of been his lasting impression, while Williams and also undrafted rookie Nate McCrary have come on and really given them some great snaps. So I think maybe if Dobbins and Edwards play, because at this point I don't think Hill is going to play, we'll see maybe 1 series from Dobbins or 1 series from Edwards, and then it'll be the Williams and McCrary show. And honestly, I expect big things because Tyson Williams, after being on the practice squad last year, I mean, his game is elevated, and I'm excited to see what he can do to kind of, hopefully in his case, secure the running back 3 job.
So, Dre, I'm going to answer you this question. And then, Kevin, I want you to take the final answer with this one. Your overall opinion, Dre, on, I guess, the matchups that Washington will be facing, just in general, because, like, or excuse me, I would let me rephrase it. Your perception of Baltimore as Washington goes up in Saturday against the Baltimore Ravens. What is your perception of this team? First off, offensively and defensively, like the makeup of them. Like, what do they do best? What is their style? But then secondly, I'll hand it off to Kevin in a sense of, well, I'll wait till Dre answers so I won't confuse everybody. But yeah, what is your perception of Baltimore and stuff like that as we head into that Saturday game?
Well, for me, the most exciting thing about going up against Baltimore, especially if Kevin is saying that Lamar Jackson is possibly playing this weekend, I would love that test for our defense, even if it's just for a quarter or a series or however long Lamar's going to be out there. Because as you all know, we play a lot of great quarterbacks this year. So Lamar would be the first great test for this defense to see, if we can contain a scrambling style quarterback, or if we can, contain the offense, the potential explosive offense that Baltimore has. So for me, that's the perception I have of Baltimore, is just that the last couple of years watching them, their offenses have been explosive, especially with Lamar Jackson, and with the defense of Washington, the talk that they're getting, they're supposed to be a top 5 defense. Will we see them look like a top 5 defense against an offense that probably has potential to be a top 5 offense?
So my question for you, Kevin, understanding that Baltimore is strong on the offensive side and defensive side, we know that there's been some retooling of a sense with the Ravens defense. Obviously the offense is, like, we know, like, you guys got some receivers, tried to help Lamar out this offseason. Sammy Watkins, I believe, right? And then on top of that, drafting the guy from Minnesota, Bates. The retooling on the defensive side of the ball. Walk us through some of the moves that you all made to replace / upgrade at key positions. Obviously, we know Justin Houston, that's my boy. That's a really good signing, but Justin Houston is making an impact from what I understand. Walk us through some of those key upgrades and stuff like that on that side of the ball.
Yeah, well, Justin Houston was definitely the big one. The Ravens, they had lost Matthew Judon and Yannick Ngakoue and Jihad Ward, so they lost a lot of sack production. I believe it was 12 of their 39 sacks. They weren't a very high sack team. Judon led them with 6. But Justin Houston was the guy. I think that Justin Houston is going to be a perfect fit in this defense. He's a veteran. He's going to be a mentor for guys like Odafe Oweh and Tyus Bowser. But other than him, the Ravens didn't really necessarily upgrade their defense by signing free agents. They're going to be relying on Oweh, who was a first-round pick, to give them some production. Dalen Hayes was a 5th-round pick. Sean Wade isn't there anymore, but some of the undrafted secondary guys or second-year guys for them. So they're returning a lot of guys. And honestly, the upgrades for me are, I think, going to be bigger years from Patrick Queen and Deshaun Elliott, because pretty much for Deshaun Elliott in his case, he was given the keys to the free safety job after Earl Thomas had his whole whatever Earl Thomas had, and the Ravens ends up cutting him due to contact detrimental to the team. Deshaun Elliott, primarily a strong safety, the Ravens say, hey, we're going to start you at free safety this year after having no starting NFL experience, and you haven't played this position really before. So he kind of got confident as the season went on. And so this year, having the offseason, having the preseason, he's looked really good. Patrick Queen, kind of the same thing. No Earl Thomas there, but he was a little raw coming out of college in some aspects, has a sideline-to-sideline speed, but he struggled in pass coverage at times. He actually got benched against Kansas City because Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, Patrick Mahomes was carving that defense up. And so I think that he looks faster. He looks more confident. He said that it took him about 5 weeks to really get into game shape for the NFL season last year. So now with that full off season here and with the preseason here, those are really where my upgrades are coming in. Aside from Justin Houston, also Malik Harrison, second year outside or inside linebacker from Ohio State. Those are the kinds of guys who I'm expecting big leaps from that will propel the Ravens defense to the next level. And obviously you can't forget about guys like Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, Calais Campbell, and those guys too.
So we did have a quick little spike in viewers. So for those who are just joining us, we have Kevin O. I'm gonna save myself. Kevin O, the host and producer of the Locked On Ravens podcast and managing editor for the Ravens Wire. If you all have one or two questions for Kevin before we get up out of here, go ahead and send them to the chat and we can ask them. So I do have one more question for you because we appreciate your time and checking in with us for this preseason game. If this was regular season, we may have a little bit more to talk about, but this is a little bit more broad here. But the biggest be more offensive / defensive strengths that Washington fans need to be aware of come Saturday. Obviously, you mentioned depth, and that's really good and that's key because backups are going to be playing. But what is the offensive and defensive strengths that we should be paying attention to on the Washington side of things?
Yeah, so for Baltimore in particular, I mean, the run game is something that I think the Washington defense is going to have to be able to stop if they want a chance to win this game. Because we talked about Tyson Williams and Nate McCrary. Obviously, that Washington defense, you mentioned it, has very high expectations this season, and rightfully so. But again, it's almost like who is going to be playing in this game? For the Ravens, it doesn't seem like a lot of their starters will be playing. So if Washington throws out a couple of their starters for a few series, they could kind of turn the tides early in the game. Baltimore has started off a bit slowly in their first two preseason games. So if Washington can do that and stop the run, then I think that they would have a pretty good chance to win because the Carolina Panthers linebacker, I can't remember his name right now, but in an interview with the Panthers broadcast, he said, look, we know what they're doing every single time and we cannot stop it. The Ravens are running power every single play again on Saturday against Carolina, and the defense just could not stop it. So if Washington can do that, I think that's a pretty good indicator. On the defensive side of the ball, I would anticipate Washington has the best shot to win if they can prevent the Ravens from blitzing effectively. Baltimore has one of the highest blitz rates in the NFL. In fact, they've led the league in blitz rate over the past 2 seasons. So they love it. Don Martindale loves those blitzes. He'll put 8 people on the line. He'll put 9 people on the line. Sometimes not all of them. Sometimes he'll drop everybody but 3. So it's those blitz packages that are really exotic. And it can be confusing sometimes, especially for younger quarterbacks, depending on who's in there. So I think that if you're looking at one key on offense, one key on defense for Baltimore, those would be the 2 that I'd label.
Absolutely. Dre, before we close out, do you have anything for Kevin that we didn't cover tonight?
I don't know if Kevin will know, but is Lamar Jackson playing a series? Just one series.
A lot of people want him to, and honestly, again, it would not shock me if he would. I can't guarantee anything, unfortunately. Yeah. But the fact that the Ravens did cut Kenji Bahar, they're going with 2 quarterbacks. Maybe it's just a sign that says, hey, we want to play Tyler Huntley and get a better look at our backup quarterback. But it also could be we want to see Lamar Jackson and get him a series or 2 just to tune him up a bit, get him some game action before the regular season, which I think is perfectly viable. Now, the Ravens in general have taken a pretty cautious approach with their starters, so that's why I'm kind of leaning on the cautious side of, hey, probably might not play in this one. Because, look, in the NFL, an injury can happen on any play, whether it's the first play, the last play. So anytime there's a risk there, you probably don't want to risk it in the preseason. But if they're just going for the tune-up, it's certainly possible. But if I had to give you an answer, yes or no, based off what I feel, that's probably not. It's probably going to be Huntley the whole game.
Okay.
All right, so we do have one question, and shout out to you, Schlezo, because I definitely forgot for a second. So he said, this is a statement, but I'll pose it to you as a question. I'll read it verbatim. He said, y'all don't think it's weird for players won't start in the preseason week 3, but still have 2 to 3 weeks before week 1. And obviously he's talking about just players in general just sitting out for that long of a period. Kevin, I'll just float it to you as an open thing before we close out. Like, what is your opinion on players actually, like for example, the Chargers who aren't playing at all, like their key players until week 1? What is your idea on just this specific situation, holding out your starters for that long of a period?
Yeah, well, it's a good point, and I'll go back to the 2019 season for the Ravens. That was Lamar Jackson's MVP year. The Ravens were in a position where they had a choice to make, and it was, are you going to play your starters in week 17, get them some run before that bye week in the playoffs because they were the number 1 seed, or are you going to rest them and risk having a bit of rust on them because I think it's a 3-week layoff there for the Ravens, or maybe it was 2, I can't remember exactly, but the Ravens ended up resting their players. Or most of their starters, at least. They have that bye week in the wild card round, and they come back in the divisional round, and there was clearly some rust on the Ravens, and it probably affected them a little more than a lot of people realize against Tennessee. They lose that game. So it's definitely understandable that there are questions surrounding, well, what happens if a guy sits out for the entire preseason? We've seen quarterbacks, and there will be quarterbacks, most of them, some star guys who will not play for this entire preseason and kind of go into week 1 without that game action. I think it's really important for guys to get game action. You know, I've said that before, but I think seeing the injuries that have happened, at least for the Ravens in particular, and this is coming from, every day seeing a new injury report come out with another guy leaving practice. Sometimes if those injuries aren't healed up, or if a guy isn't back into the groove of practice, Lamar Jackson did miss the first 10 days of camp with COVID. So, it's about getting him up to full speed. And it's a point because the Ravens had that rust and they saw it firsthand how it can affect teams just not playing for 2-3 weeks at a time, then coming back and being immediately thrown back into that fire. Now, the Ravens in particular, their week 1 record has been phenomenal, or at least point differential has been phenomenal. They've blown out teams. I think the official stat is 119-19 or something. That might not be accurate over the last 3 seasons, but they beat Miami 59-10. They beat Cleveland 38-6. They beat Buffalo, I think, 48 to something. So they're week 1 warriors. And so if there's a team that I trust to come out and play week 1 and dominate week 1, the Ravens playing the Raiders on Monday Night Football, first game in Vegas for the Raiders in that stadium, I think it would be the Ravens because they've just shown that dominance in week 1.
Money line. Just hammer it. Take the Ravens.
and any money you can put on.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's it. Okay, hey Kevin, man, I appreciate you hopping on with us for this short time, man. Typically, like I tell people who hop on for the Thursdays or Mondays show, man, we usually do like an hour and just to get to know our guests, especially people we don't really talk to that much or haven't had a chance to talk to on this platform. But in the future, if things are around, I'll definitely be reaching out to you again, man. Appreciate your time. Let the people know where they can find you, what you got going on, how they can see your written work, all that good stuff, everything.
Yeah, absolutely. As it was a blast, and I'd love to do it again. For my personal stuff, the Locked On Ravens podcast comes out 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. You can get it anywhere there's a podcast, so Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever. For Twitter, the show updates come on the account at Locked On Ravens, and my personal Twitter account for Ravens news and analysis and stuff is at K Oestreicher 34, and then Ravens Wire is ravenswire.com. There's also at the Ravens Wire, that Twitter account. So I'm a little bit of everywhere.
Everywhere, man. Moving pieces and very busy. But you on the grind, man, and I respect it. So best of luck to you, obviously, with your career path. You're definitely on the right track, boss, man. And appreciate your time, boss.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.
All right. Yes, sir. All right. So that was Kevin Oestreicher. I had to hear it one more time, you know what I'm saying, to make myself confident again. But that was Kevin Oestreicher talking Baltimore football with us as we previewed the Washington. It ain't apple juice, Sleezo. It's that goddamn Basil Hayden's. You don't know nothing about that, bro. Put some hair on your chest. You know what I'm saying? I'm out here, dog. I'm out here. But I didn't finish it now, so we out of here. Dre has a fantasy draft to do, and I also need to take my dog out. So we'll be quick. Dre, if you got a dip, go ahead. Be safe, big dog. Handle your business. I'm going to close out on my side. And I will see you Saturday, Dre.
Yeah, I'll be on for the pregame show.
Yes, sir. All right, I'll holler at you, boss.
All right, bet.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that was Kevin. That was Dre. Again, let me change this. There we go. for people, again, just to reiterate, for those who missed it, you want to enter for your chance to win a free Madden digital copy on the Xbox Series X MVP edition. All you have to do is follow me on Twitch. The link is in the description for those on YouTube. Same thing for the Apple Podcast. The link is in the description. Takes you right to the Twitch channel. Follow. If you want to increase your chances on winning, subscribe. That'll increase your chances by 3 times. And those who are regulars, you're already, I already put your information in there, so there's nothing you can do about being a regular. If you're a regular, I know who you are. So it is what it is. But yeah, that'll be announced on the pregame show that Dre just mentioned. 5 o'clock Eastern on Saturday. So tune in. You have to be in the stream in order to win. You got to be in the stream in order to win. And we'll announce everything there. So, Sleezo, appreciate you, bro. I hope you're safe. All that good stuff. But yeah, I will be back Saturday. Great show. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Dre. All that good stuff. Until next time. All right. Peace.
Whole hard in the trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga. Don't forget to mention. Whole hard in the